Let's go. They should have said the poet. The poet. They should have said the poet. The poet.
Sending poets.
Greetings. This is Sending Poets, a podcast about the beauty of life. We call it Sending Poets because of the movie Contact, that line when Jodie Foster goes through the wormhole and says, they should have sent a poet. My name is John, with me is Bob, and today's episode is the final part in a series of 3 about the human evolution of consciousness. What's up, Bob? How are you doing today?
What's up, John? I love that intro, as always. Gets me going. I love it. Big smile on my
Thank
face.
you. Right on. Thank you. Yeah, so actually we're going to start with just a few minutes to just kind of like follow up a little bit of like type of Q&A from the past 2 episodes, and then we're going to dive into this. Like, I think last episode we kind of described this as sort of almost like the okay, now what episode, like these are all these things we talked about in the last 2, and so what do we do about it kind of a thing. So real briefly, after the first episode, we were talking about animals that sweat, and I was curious about that, so I Googled it. And this, I don't really intend to spend a lot of time on this, but I thought it was worth the follow-up. I did just Googling it. There's 7 animals that sweat. It's like, oh, cool. And it's not, some of the sweat is like not exactly sweat. I think the bottom line is that evaporative cooling effect, is its own thing. And some of this sweat stuff is like not exactly for evaporative cooling, purpose, but, other things. Like, for example, hippos, it's not exactly sweat, but there's like this mucus-filled liquid, and it functions as like a moisturizer, sunscreen, and antibiotic, and it turns red, and some people call it blood sweat. So I thought that was neat. Learned something new.
Wow, that is really cool. Yeah,
yeah, gnarly,
that's
right?
so cool.
Horses.
I heard that they sunburn. I did hear that hippos would sunburn, so it makes sense they would need some kind of a natural,
right.
Adaptation to that. That's very cool. Yeah.
Yep. So that was gnarly. Horses, they secrete a kind of foam. There's a protein called latharin. It's Latherin, which also looks like lathering and soap and lathering. I don't know. That's an interesting kind of like, maybe that's where it comes from. There's some root word similarity there, but and then we talked about dogs, and dogs actually do sweat a little bit out of their paws, but I don't think there's really a function. Again, the evaporative cooling thing comes from the panting, for sure. Anyway,
I think real quick on the thing of the paws, something else is that if they lick their paws and their forelimbs and then that kind of like dries, I think kangaroos might do this as well, where they'll like lick themselves and then that dries. So an interesting, it's almost like a behavioral adaptation that is the function of evaporative cooling, I believe, sometimes occurs. But yeah, there's so much really cool biological evolution right before our eyes. I love it, man. I really do.
Right. And then it's interesting with our dog. She's a little Bichon mix thing, and but she has allergies, and she licks, and it's like not good. Like the vet's like, yeah, try to keep her from like licking her paws, and so that's.
But
like,
she's not
gnarly.
like running on the African plains or anything. She's a
no right.
brachiocephalic
right.
breed, smush face dog, which has its own drawbacks, meaning that is their way of evaporation. So when you have the brachiocephalic breeds, the boxers, bulldogs, right? These pit bulls, right? Everything that's got the smush face
Mm.
really impacts their breathing. And for dogs, it's a function of overheating. And so those brachiocephalic breeds can have terrible overheating because it's like shutting off your ability to sweat for them.
Yeah, so there's a chance I misspoke on the breed. I think it's like Bichon Frise but I could be anyway but she doesn't really have the squish face. I know what you're talking about, like the squish face. She doesn't really have that. So it's interesting that I'm talking about dogs at all. Like I'm generally not like a huge like animal person. Partly because of my allergies and stuff. So, but
Yeah, you don't have cats,
brachiocephalic,
right?
that's like no, yeah, could not do cats. Yeah, that would have been
Allergies,
yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, that was interesting. So this thing, I'll just run through the seven animals: just hippopotamuses, dogs, old world monkeys, gorillas, chimpanzees. Those last three kind of make sense, and then zebras. It's specifically called out zebras and then horses and donkeys separately. So anyway, so yeah, just thought that was kind of interesting to follow up on
It is.
briefly, and then a correction. Sometimes I think it's good if we like can recognize corrections because in the first episode you were talking about the human body, how much percentage is actually water, and you called it correctly the first time. You said like 60, and I was like, for some reason I want to say 70. No, it's 60. It's definitely 60%. So like to follow up on
Salt
those
water.
kinds of things. uh
Salt water. Yeah, that
yeah.
like we're water. The point is, obviously, we're water creatures coming from the sea, and that's our evolutionary background. It's um, you know
Hmm.
one of those one of those lovely mysteries that I don't know. It's living water is a very interesting. Mud is a very interesting concept. I mean, technically, I would say we're mud. If you want to
Wow.
talk about the fact that we've ashes to ashes, dust to dust, that is the realest
Mm.
deal there is. Um, but there is a component of us that's like this living water that just comes and goes. Trees too. They're just like giant straws. I mean, if you think of the structure of a tree, it's a bunch of straws packed right next to each other.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of it
Where
that way before. That's cool.
I mean, I like the metaphor of humans being, seed dispersal mechanisms, meaning the impregnation device. We're the midwives between the trees and the earth, as one of the creatures that evolved the ability and the desire to consume their fruit and then go defecate it
Mm.
elsewhere. So that
Yeah.
that role that we played, well, maybe the trees are playing a role of taking groundwater and putting it into the air. Maybe the water is the living thing. Maybe the water is the
Mm.
universal big God. Then there's the trees. Then there's the monkey people.
Yeah.
And so somewhere in there, there's got to be fungus because without the fungus, nothing turns. It all just dies and just sits there. So at
Yeah.
one point in time, we had no fungal component that was able to break down the cellulose of the trees, and everything just kind of stacked on itself, and it was terrible. So anyway, I love the beauty of it, and thank you for the callback to getting to the 60% because really put your
Cool.
mind around that. By the way,
Right. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
your body. H2O, like just hydrogen and oxygen. Your body is 60% of that thing right there.
Yeah.
And it comes and goes, man. You take a glass of water, drink it, you go to the bathroom, and there it goes. It's just
Yeah.
literally.
Right.
But that's you, whatever, 60%. And
Yeah.
so it's staggering. I love that callback. Thank you so much.
Have you heard the Bruce Lee quotes about water be like water and
Be like
stuff?
water, my friend. Absolutely. Take the
Yeah.
shape of the container you're in. Be hard, be soft.
Right.
It is the truth right
Yeah.
there. Love
Right.
it.
And there's a good that was a good segue too because you're talking about the fruit again. Like so one of the questions I had from the first episode was because we were talking about like eye placement, and the proto-humans, like their eyes were kind of forward as opposed to like prey animals have their eyes on the sides of their, face. And there was an interesting thing. So do you think, because, in the story of the proto-humans and getting the fruit, like the fruit, you specifically called out like the depth perception thing was important to have the eyes forward. And the question I was wondering, do you think the depth perception was, I don't know, more important because they weren't really hunting prey, except maybe the fruit was like the prey in that scenario. I
But
mean, it wasn't.
the fruit is always in the tree, and the tree provides protection. So the creatures that are in the tree are in their own special. It's like a bird, where it just doesn't
Mm,
give a shit because it's flying over your head. Like once the bird's off the ground, you are SOL, right?
yeah,
So once the monkey's up the tree, well, guess what? Adios, amigos. If you're on the ground, you don't touch me. And so it's all
mm,
about the ability to go within navigation within your biome. So the tree dwelling, opposable thumb grasping, opposable big toe grasping, prehensile tail grasping,
yeah,
long limbs, overhand motion, because these creatures came from a quadrupedal. You got to think of the forces of like a shrew. Okay, it's got like this drop down force, meaning its legs are underneath it. Okay, it's built like a pedestal. I mean, it's offset obviously because it's low slung. It's not like an elephant, but it's more like an elephant than what we're talking about, which is the limbs flexibility, overhand swinging. Okay, that
yeah,
overhand swinging and the ability to cling and drop and hold yourself up. It's just like a lot of people don't realize the structure of these animals, like a horse. The shoulder blade of the horse is not attached. Like the whole front quarter of the horse is technically not attached to anything. It's just structurally held there by a muscle, grouping of muscles. And the dynamics of the chest of a horse is just unbelievably complex. Like you just couldn't do what they do. You just, obviously you can't do what they do, but I'm saying there's like a special adaptation there about allowing them to move. Their hooves
mm,
are adapted middle fingers. So you have your phalanx, your P1 through P5, and your P3 is your middle finger, and that third section is like the very tip of your middle finger. If you look at the very tip of your middle finger, that's what the horses run on. That's their friggin' hooves, man. That
really,
thing, I swear to you, they adapted. If
that
you look at
is so interesting.
all the other digits contract up into like the fetlock area, and there's this part called the frog on the bottom of the hoof, and it's like the pad of your finger, and then they have the nail, which is their hoof. It's literally a nail, but it's just this one digit, a single digit that
Wow.
these creatures run upon. They're so adept. So the ability for one creature to express its adaptation with just examining its body, because you can infer so much. This is what I'm getting at, is looking at the structure, looking at the mechanics, and then inferring how did that come about, because it's no accident. And I'm quoting Take Me Back to Eden, by the way. So
Oh,
I love that line. It is no accident, okay?
yeah.
You are my desire. I'm not gonna get too crazy on it, but anyway, it's what the meaning of the song is. Take me back to Eden is to get back to what it feels like to be the animal you are, because you are an animal.
Yeah.
Grow
Wow.
back your sharper teeth, okay? Like right,
Yeah.
you got to grow back your sharper teeth, okay? You got to feel this feeling of your purpose. Now, it doesn't mean you're controlled by it, and this is what we get into consciousness, subconsciousness. We're not trying
Yeah.
to
Free will,
control the
free won't.
process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Free will, free won't. We're not controlling the process. Understanding it
Yeah.
releases us from
Yeah.
our burden of what do we do now?
Yeah.
You don't want to ever
Wow.
be in that place. You got to have a direction, and then you can act on it. Now, maybe you have to adapt and call an audible. Fair enough. But you can plan
Yeah.
for that. But if you don't have any direction to go, you don't know where your compass is, man.
Yeah.
You're in
Wow.
a terrible place. Terrible place.
Yeah.
But we're not that
Wow.
kind of animal anymore. Yeah, we're not that kind of animal. So, it takes me back to the functionality of our hands to carry things, our legs
Hmm.
to transport our body. And
Yeah.
this is the basic mechanism.
And that's a beautiful segue to the next question, which wasn't necessarily a question, but I just was hoping I could like practice this with you, this the next kind of shift into bipedalism. And the way that you described the efficiency of learning to, well, maybe see, this is where I just want to say this and I want you to like correct me where I'm missing, or just, maybe it's like a couple words, or maybe I'm totally off. Anyway, but this, because I've tried to explain it to like my parents and Kim, and like I think that I'm not quite there, but there's this efficiency that happened in our evolution around that patella tendon and around letting gravity do some of the work of our movement, right? And like, isn't that
Let's
like
start
how
at the
you kind of
beginning. Let's
described
start
it?
at, you were right on the money because I felt kind of bad. I self-reviewed. I think I think I might have listened to this episode, and I realized I jumped two components to get to the
Mm,
patella tendon to accelerate the conversation. So the conversation begins at the big toe, the intractable big toe.
yeah,
So if you were to lose your little baby toe, your pinky toe, I don't know, is it called a pinky toe? What do you call the little baby toe?
I
Is it
think
just
so.
baby toe?
The little piggy that went all the way. Yeah.
Yeah, the little piggy. Thank you, John. The little piggy. Okay, if you lose the little piggy, you're jogging probably within 3-4 weeks. You're
Mm,
sad, but you're jogging within 3-4 weeks. You know, you're not going to be, terribly put off within a year, whatever. You lose your big daddy toe, the one that goes to market,
mm.
right? The first one, the big one. You lose that bad boy, you might never run again. Okay, so the power of the foot structure when you are walking, it is derived by the stability of that connection. The pad underneath, it's like your thumb pad, and then that big toe is like your thumb. So it's a different feeling than the other toes, and it provides a different function. It's the stability and the strength. So you have this big toe matrix that connects with really strong ligaments and tendons up through the arch, which is a huge benefit to transfer that energy to the Achilles, and that's your
Mm,
structure. So your
yeah.
Achilles is providing. I did refer to the kangaroos, and the kangaroos have a advantage of the material. They have a material advantage. The structure of their tendons and ligaments are such that it returns a lot of energy like elastically into the system. So they're like little springs bouncing on this thing, and that's their adaptation. What we have is this Achilles that is super strong. It's materially like steel in a tensile strength meaning. And this loop from the toe around the heel up into the calf is anchored by this Achilles, and it is our Achilles heel. So let's just go there. It's a metaphorical show. Let's go there. Are you familiar with Achilles, the myth?
Yeah. Right.
Right.
He
Okay. So
yeah, he's like unstoppable, but that's the one thing that could stop him and does stop him or whatever, like when he gets an arrow gets shot through it or something, right?
when he was dipped into the river of whatever it was to give him the
Right.
magical power, he was held by his Achilles heel. So that was
That
the
was the only
one
thing that
part of,
didn't get protected.
there you
Yeah.
go, the one part of vulnerability. So the humans have this one part of vulnerability that if you in the ancient times were to ever lose your Achilles tendon, it's game over, my brother. There ain't no coming back. You're done.
Yeah.
It is so
Wow.
important. Then you go to the patella tendon. So the patella tendon is triggered as a reflex to allow this. There's a really cool brain function. Let's go to the brain real quick. It's called, dang it, now I forgot it. It's called Central Pattern Generator, CPG. Central
Mm.
Pattern Generator is a part of your brain, a complex of neurons that take on repetitive motion activities such as swimming, jogging, running, hiking,
Driving probably,
walking,
right?
driving. Yes, sir. These autonomous mechanical activities can be locked in to these central pattern generator pathways, and it allows you to defer the active guidance of the structure of your body and drop it to another level that is taken care of autonomously. And so part of that is this reflex action that when your knee bends at the end of your stride, as you're starting to bend your lower leg up to bring it forward again, once you make that bend, it's going to kick out on its own. And you're falling onto the pedestal of that leg as you move forward. So there's this very unstable system that is guided by really smart brain work that stabilizes you because you have a high center of gravity and reflex motion of these lower leg complexes. Great question,
Wow.
John. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for going through that again. Yeah, because it's a very fascinating thing to me. And as I was trying to explain it, I'm like, I'm not there yet. I don't know if I can explain it as well as Bob can.
Well, we
So
didn't have time. I think we didn't have time. I wanted to hit the really cool part, which is everybody knows the little thing you hit your knee and the knee kicks out. Like
yeah,
everybody knows that because everybody's been to the doctor and the doctor hits your knee with the hammer and it's so cool, right?
right.
But it's like really important. It's like, that's
Yeah,
it's a fundamental thing that the doc checks every time, and all the rest. The Achilles heel is so important to our evolution and our mythology. To be honest,
yes, right,
the
exactly.
importance of it. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, cool. So then move into episode 2. I didn't actually have much Q&A, but I thought it was worthwhile, so these 3 episodes are part of a series. You and I have talked offline or whatever that we just have many ideas for sort of series of things and topics that we can spend one or many episodes going through. And I don't think we specifically said it last time, but we will have series of shows here on movies that kind of demonstrate the consciousness subconsciousness dynamic. I know we will. I know, we could do probably multiple episodes of a single movie. You know what I mean? Multiple, like, this whole episode is on this one movie. We could do like
We're going to have to
episodes where
do
we just kind
contact.
of
We're going to have
we're
to
gonna
do
do
contact at
contact,
some point.
right? Like, so I thought just as a quick sort of teaser, because I did throw some of these movies in the note, just for reference. So I thought, I don't want to get into it now, obviously, but you mentioned Moby Dick and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest to me like early on when we met. So we'll go over those. Also thought like Truman Show, The Usual Suspects, The
Mm,
Matrix. I kind of have
mm.
this in my head that there's this very sort of high level similarity between anytime there's a movie that's talking about, you know, the real world or like a hidden reality from what everybody thinks is the real world. So I don't know if you've seen Barbie, but Barbie is also one of those that I think we could do an episode about how it relates to such subconsciousness, consciousness stuff. So
Interesting. I've
um,
not seen Barbie yet, but
yeah,
I'm curious how you're going to connect those dots.
yes.
That's pretty cool.
So
Yeah.
so just a little teaser, for anybody like, oh yeah, I gotta wait for this. Anyway,
Throw
so
this in there.
yeah,
Throw this in there. Because this is really important. If anybody has seen this, we literally just watched it last night. That's why I bring it up. True Grit, specifically the new version of True Grit.
okay,
Um,
yeah, I have heard it and I haven't watched it, but I'm definitely gonna like check that out because I've heard it's really good. It's Jeff
Jeff
Bridges, right?
Bridges. Yes, sir.
Yes, awesome actor, by the way. Tron.
Amazing.
Oh my God, Tron. I gotta throw that in there. Again, like I
Tron.
have this in my
Very good.
mind. I'm probably stretching, but there's this very like
It's in everything,
close
John. It's in
similarity.
everything.
Yeah.
It's in everything. You dig deep enough,
So
you can't avoid it.
yeah,
It's there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's
So I
like
can't wait for
Kevin Bacon.
those.
It's like Kevin Bacon, 6 degrees of
Oh
consciousness. And right? You
yeah,
just have to
right.
give me like
Yeah,
3 degrees. I don't even 6. I need 3.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Beautiful. So that I can't wait for that. So now I think this is a good time to sort of like now segue into like this now what type of this third episode arc, and specifically like the where we ended up with the episode 2 was this idea of like the roles that we play as humans, like within groups or teams specifically. So the map makers, who are like the adventurers, right, and like the almost compelled to go, uh, do the thing to find the new stuff, right? The map
They're at the
readers, like
edges. They're at the edges of the map. They're the ones searching
yeah,
out the new territory. That's exactly right. The edge
yeah.
people.
There is I didn't mention this last time, but there is a similarity with in there's this guy on LinkedIn. His name is Simon Sinek. Well, I mean, he's on LinkedIn. Well, he's on a lot of places, but he's got quite a big LinkedIn following. He talks about like agile methodology and like just business stuff, but he has this bell curve diagram about products and early adopters. The ones
Yes,
that are
I
just
do.
like, it's new, I need it, whereas like that's usually a small percentage
That's a
of
great
of
metaphor.
users.
Yep.
Yeah, and the map makers, the early adopters, like
It's
how
perfect. Yeah, high
he
risk, high
brings in.
reward. Yeah, high risk, high
Yes,
reward
exactly.
people
Oh,
there.
that's
Yeah,
that's that's exactly how he describes it, I believe, is
yeah.
high risk,
That's
high
a
reward.
good.
Wow, what a cool thing. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good way to
right.
put it. There because there's 2 angles. One is an edge case, meaning are we really choosing to be this kind of a thing? Like the people who
Yeah,
are the edge cases that have to find the cave within the cave. They have to know what's behind the crack in the floor. They have to know what's around the bend.
yeah, right.
And then I don't know if it's a choice, but so, but
Yeah.
the risk reward meaning, hey, I see what happens when you sit in the middle of the field versus I see what happens to those people who are right at the edge and they're looking at the next field over, and that next field is really nice because nobody's over there yet.
Mm.
And they're going to be the first one over there. And they're going to eat all the grass. I mean, so it's like a constant tug to explore and exploit resources in an advantageous way.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the map readers, kind of interpreting uh, the followers, sort of just, the like just kind of following, like based on what's been learned, and kind of the next piece in the
Well, hold
chain.
on one second. Hold on one second. Let's go back to if I may, let's go back to the map
Sure.
readers because I don't want to skip over the importance of this
Mm-hmm.
contingency.
Mm-hmm.
The point of the map reader is they can mimic what is effective. So as a strategy, they are de-leveraging the risk because their neck's not out there, but they're taking vast quantities of the benefit because they know it works. And they can repeat these patterns indefinitely
Mm-hmm.
by observing and mixing, matching for their own usages. It's essentially like culture. What we're talking about is the presets of how to behave, what works in the world, why humans are here, and what do we do without
Yeah.
you having to go be a map maker,
Yeah.
map maker, and just go explore every little thing and try to reinvent the wheel every time. Reinventing the
Right.
wheel is a terrible idea, like 99.9999999% of the time.
Right.
It's the worst idea. So the map readers are really in a sweet spot of balance between exploration, because it doesn't mean you're like completely all of one way. Obviously, that's not the point of the exercise. These are archetypes.
Yeah.
It means as a function of the majority decision of the pieces of you observe and utilize. And why that is so important is because the map makers are created to find the edge case and bring it back to the group. But once the edge case has all been explored, that map maker is equivalent to the map reader. There is no
Yeah.
extra benefit. And it's a really important component of the logic of the team. And we're going to talk about teams here. I really need to define this. But now let's go to the next one, please. Followers.
Yeah. Followers. So I probably not going to do as well as. Do you want to just
Sure. So
go for like...
yeah. So the followers are not determining the logic of the thing. They're using trust and their judgment
Okay.
of the person with which to follow. They don't care what the point of anything is, meaning why we're going where we're going. It's not relevant. You need to judge, who do I trust? Because one person's going to say we go left here, and the other one's going to say we go right here. Now, number
Yeah.
one, the followers don't even know where you're going. You don't know what the end destination is. You're taking care of business right now. And if there's not people to take care of business right now, we all die in like 3 days.
Yeah. Right.
So there's an
Okay.
expediency level that the followers are required to maintain that stabilizes all of civilization. And if
Yeah.
you don't have this group, and by the way, it's like an inverted pyramid. So the giant section is these followers, and they're really should be on top, because without this section of followers, it's almost like gravity is pulling it down. So inverted, the top layer should be, meaning top layer, the typical case that you should be maximizing your objective function upon is being a really good follower. That's what the typical all of us should be doing from childhood. You all have to go through this level. Nobody gets out, as a first-time map maker. Nobody does. I don't care who you are, not even Mozart. Mozart didn't make the harpsichord. Mozart didn't make paper. He didn't make ink. He didn't make candles. He didn't make the organs and obviously this is a function of the strength of carrying on iteratively progress each generation makes. That is the function of us as a team. So let me jump on team real quick, because I really want to define this, John, if I can. Actually, let me ask you. Can I ask you, please? Because I think you've got such a steady Eddie, really observant, objective point of view. What would you say to define, just what would you define team? One of the, I know it has many definitions, but what's your core definition of team?
Well, on the spot, I mean, I don't think I generally have thought the specific roles, and I love the way that you describe it, you know. I think for me, it's like there's just this base level of like, uh, difference being like key because, and so the reason I'm saying it that way is like my experience with the band, and I consider that a team. Like we were all working towards a common goal, and we all had our own strengths, and the strengths were in the differences. When I would like show up to practice with a couple riffs and be like, check this out, invariably someone would say, that's cool, but what if we did this here? What if we like swapped that? What if we did this? And it was something that I just knew it was something I would not have come up with myself. So there was this like um epiphany that would happen or whatever, that just by virtue of the difference, the end product was better for it. So I love that, like,
That's quite
you
beautiful.
you're
That's quite
you're
beautiful right
describing.
there. I like that.
Thanks, man. I mean, but you can see there's like such a generic kind of, I don't, okay, so like, of course, it made sense in the band, there were roles like singer, guitar player, drummer, but I love your description of map maker, map reader, follower. I, I don't think in general to, what an answer, right? How is team like? Well, let me
Well,
start with this. I
well,
just
just
ramble
as a
on, but like,
definition, though,
you know,
just the team as a definition, what would you define team like in a dictionary? Just team, just that one word, team. The concept
yeah,
of team. Yeah.
multiple people working towards a common goal,
Okay.
something like that.
Well, I like that. Here's how I would condense that label. People who share an end result.
Hmm.
So the problem with your team definition is sometimes people on the team are not pulling their own weight.
Mm.
Sometimes they make mistakes. Sometimes they're not very good, but they're on a championship team.
Mm.
So they're not working with you, but they're going to come with me because you're on my team. I'm your leader. We're coming this way. I don't care if you're not good. You're coming this way with me. We are going to
Mm.
win together. We share an outcome, and it's unacceptable for any of us to lose. Therefore, you will not lose either. So there's
Interesting.
an evolutionary standpoint of it's not voluntary. Now we got so luxurious in our position in this universe. I think we've lost the foundation note of the chord, which is about survival. I don't know if you've ever heard this before. This is a great quote. We'll go back to Dan Carlin, the historian, hardcore
Yeah.
history gentleman podcast, wonderful, greatest podcast of all time, probably, where he brings up this constant refrain of wooden shoes up the stairs, silk slippers down the stairs.
Mm.
So it's a hard work, hard nosed, disciplined journey to go upwards and carry the society upper. And once you get to decadence and silk slippers, it's so easy to start slipping down those stairs. And you just take all the steps right back down because you're just consuming the benefits of the wooden shoes going up the stairs. And it's a human
Wow.
nature thing. This is
Yeah.
a very beautiful metaphor of the constant refrain of, I think it's strong men make, hard times make for strong men make for good times make for weak men, weak men make for hard times make for strong men. So it just like constantly evolves, right?
Wow.
And,
Yeah,
and
that's
so
heavy.
that is heavy. So evolutionarily, the human adaptation above all else is our fitness as a team. And that's not just in our team in real time, that's intergenerational. This is where we break the boundaries of any other animal. We become something different. We have an intergenerational team where we pass the baton culturally forward, so we don't have to relearn all these, mistakes or rules or whatever an infinite number of times, because we'd never make it very far if we all had to reinvent the wheel every single generation. It wouldn't help us. It doesn't matter how smart you are. Like, it doesn't matter. You could be Einstein. You could be Newton. Obviously, you can't just make it all your own. You just can't. So you're on a team. You started as a follower. You share the same outcome because you're in a family. We're not leaving grandma behind just because she can't walk as fast as everybody else. We're carrying grandma now.
Yeah.
Okay, little Johnny who sprained his ankle, he's not going to be forgotten. We're carrying him with us. He's coming with us. It doesn't matter if he cannot contribute. And I think that's one of the beauties. Sometimes in the animal kingdom, let's talk about prides of lions. You have a team of hunting lionesses, and one of them will get injured and not be able to participate. She still feeds. She will become useful if she can survive. She's part of the team. And there's a bond there that is the bedrock of the adaptation of these emotions and these guiding principles that we share as an animal, essentially.
Is this a good segue into your story about how the 5 rules came up?
I think it's a beautiful segue right now.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do this thing.
Yeah, go for it, man.
So I have 2 kids, and they were born in 2013 and 15. So right around, I think it was right around 2015-ish, when we had our second one. And I was working at a university locally, and my wife is a veterinarian. She was working at a local clinic. And we had a nanny, and it just didn't make sense for me to make this commute and do all this stuff when I really was not getting compensated enough to justify, hiring a nanny in place of what I could literally do. So long story short, I became a stay-at-home dad, and loved it. But I was not really adapted to this role. Just the cultural stereotypical, I didn't take care of babies. I was the youngest in my family. I never knew a kid. I didn't have cousins and stuff that I knew that were younger that I took care of. I didn't really know anything. So I kind of had to just take this thing on. What do you do with little kids? And so here's the way the rule system comes about. As we begin the child rearing, they're in a state of non-communication or physical communication. They can't speak yet. And once they get to the point of you can actually start talking to them, what guidance would you provide? And so I just started like this organic process of making a rule and how the rule would be a tool that we could, as a team, allow guidance to transfer from one generation to the next. And so the 5 rules, let me just go through them. I just do all the backstory. I apologize for the lengthy backstory, but I'm just prefacing this as it did not come out as 5 original rules. It came out as just the first thing, and then the second thing, and the third thing, and the fourth. And once I got to 5, I just stopped because I just never found another reason. So it was like, what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention, right? So like the necessity of whatever I was dealing with as a dad elicited one of the rule sets.
Yeah.
And once I go through the rules, I do have a beautiful metaphor I'd like to apply on top that describes the rules that are not personal to me, but more universal. But
nice.
Let me start. So the first rule is listen to each other. Second rule is always tell the truth. Third rule is no complaints. Fourth rule is no excuses. And the 5th rule is help each other.
Right on.
And with all truth in the story, it started out as listen to mommy and daddy, always tell the truth, no crying or whining, no excuses, and sisters help each other. So that's how it really went in the very beginning. Yeah. So let me just lay a universal layer, because after much introspection of these rules, because I thought they were just kind of for us and the family, and it didn't really make sense to share these with other people, and that I didn't see the universality of it. But now I see something really cool here. that has to do with waves. And we'll talk about, some other time, obviously, maybe some physics having to do with waves. But this is kind of a metaphor of the universal wave complex of how waves work. And here's what I mean. So the waves, and I'm using this loosely. Okay, here's how it's constructed in my mind. As a team, we can send and receive signals from one to another. So each unit in a team can send a signal, like a wave, or they can receive a signal, like a wave. But you cannot do them both simultaneously. So you cannot transmit and receive information at the same time. But the way of the wave is one person can transmit and multiple people can receive. Now, if multiple people try to transmit and one person tries to receive, it doesn't work either. So there's a wave dynamic to the information flow of the system as a team. So it all begins with listening. You have to receive a signal before you can intelligibly reply to the signal. So there's an order of who listens first, but after that's been worked out, the real function of the team is to listen one to the other. Multiple people listen, one person conveys the information. That's the way the team works best. It's an information paradigm that you can express so much information going one way much faster than everybody trying to express their information to one person simultaneously. It just doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah. That one person saying it like at a time, not like one person.
You cannot have multiple people transmitting simultaneously. That's right.
Time. Yeah. Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Number two, always tell the truth. When you transmit a signal, it has to be based on reality. Otherwise, you're transmitting improper information in the team. So if you're trying to spread a signal from one node to the next, to the next, to the next within the team, the ability to have people listen to you is defeated if the signal itself is fraudulent.
Okay, yeah.
It's got to be real. It's got to be high fidelity. It's got to be the truth. It has to have meaning. If you're in the dark room and I say it's safe to step there and you step there and it's not safe to step there, that's a huge problem. The trust is gone.
Yeah.
So to spread the signal, you have to have fidelity of the wave. It's got to transmit the note you sent. You cannot fraudulently insert a different note. Third rule, no complaints. You're not supposed to introduce an unharmonious note into the chord. You cannot interject dirt into the clean water of everybody else. You cannot muddy the well with a pollutant. You cannot introduce a radioactive substance into a clean area. So when you make a complaint, you're stating maybe a fact, maybe not a lie, and everybody can listen to you. It's not about like nobody can listen, so we can listen to each other. It's the truth, but it's a harmful truth, meaning it's not going to help anybody in the group. You're not spreading a signal that is showing the way home. You're saying, my foot hurts. I'm hungry. I'm tired now. I don't want to be on this walk anymore. Well, when you're in between where you are and where you need to be, everything in the middle other than getting there is irrelevant on a team that is faced with a survival situation. So to survive, you cannot introduce doubt and dismay and complaints and whines and all these things that are going to reduce the morale or the belief of the team that they're going to get where they need to go. Fourth, no excuses. So really quick, excuse and a reason. So if I don't show up today to work and I say, sorry, boss, neighbor came over, asked me to help him with his car because if he doesn't get on the road, he can't go pick up the U-Haul and move his family today to Texas. Boss would be like, I get it, but you chose him over me. I don't like that. I'm not okay with that. You're fired. Now, if you say, hey, boss, my leg got caught in a lawnmower this weekend, I lost my left foot, that's not a choice you made. That's something that's out of your control, and that's the reason why you didn't appear to work, even though you wanted to be at work.
Mm.
So the difference between a reason and an excuse is your choice. Did you have a choice in the matter? So reasons do not allow for you to have a choice. An excuse is your choice to go another way. You chose not to follow the leader home, and that's why you got lost, and you risked 15 guys' lives because we had to come find you in the dark. There was no reason why you couldn't follow us. You just chose to go off this way because you thought that was a better way. But you didn't listen. You didn't follow the leader. And now you jeopardize all these people because you're on our team and we got to come get you now. It's not allowed just to leave you alone. Let's go to the fifth rule. Help each other. It's a requirement in the team. It's a rule set. You are required to help one another. The most important part of this rule is so counterintuitive, though. Everybody, when asked, would immediately respond with yes if someone asks you for help. I would believe on a team. It just doesn't make sense not to do that. It's the ask for help. That is the hard part of this rule. To be able to humble yourself, to ask for help, to send this distress signal is the hardest part. To choose, this is the moment where I am declaring for one and all that I need assistance.
Yeah.
And if you need assistance, you can't be that big tough guy or whatever that you thought you were telling everybody you were. So it's really hard to get down and ask. But that is the point. The rule is you have to ask. And the sooner you ask, the better it is for everybody. The longer you wait, the more stubborn you are, the more you think you're an individual and not a team, the more you think you're going your way will somehow solve everybody's problems when it's really just hurting the ones that love you most. You got to ask for help. You got to help each other. So those are the 5 rules.
Wow. So thank you for going through that. There was a moment where I was like, do I interject what, at each
I think for the record,
rule,
just go through
like,
one time. I think just one time, just for the record, let me just hit that one time. And now forevermore, yes, interrupt on the 5 rules, please.
Right on. It was great for me to just like hear that and stop my own pause my own thoughts. Yeah, I've got a lot to say about that too. I think that relates to like subconscious stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
But it was great to hear the whole story because it wasn't until the no complaints one that I really felt like I was appreciating it in a new way. Because these 5 rules, like we've talked about it 2 times before. I know at least once, just briefly, and then the words have been there in our shared note for a couple months. So it was really great to like hear the whole story from you. And the thing that hit me in a new way during the no complaints explanation was I think I just recognized for my own self like that I've had a very like privileged life thus far in terms of that hierarchy of like psychological needs, where I think I've just been very lucky, privileged, whatever the word is, that there's this context of, for the sake of survival, here are these rules that you were describing it in a way that I don't know if it was, I don't know if your intent was specifically, or I should say, solely about survival, but certainly there were examples where I was like, you know what, I had not thought of it in that context before. I was thinking about it
about survival. It's 100% about survival.
I was thinking about it all like in my own like day-to-day thing, and I just like, wow, man, I've gotten very lucky in my life that like I haven't had to be out in the wilderness looking for shelter, looking for food, like I don't know what that's like. It's kind of it's very humbling to sort of think of it in that context, and like because I I think as a species, I was just wondering about this. Maybe it was yesterday after I listened to you guys' podcast, which I will get. I do want to plug it in a more appropriate way, but let me just try to finish this thought that where is the percentage in this for the species? You know, like, are we at a point where most of the species kind of does have that base layer of psychological needs, the safety, the shelter, the food, those base needs? Are we in a point where like most of our species kind of has that or not? Because that's very fascinating to me. Like that if not, like why not now? Like we should be all. I mean, I know there's still poverty in the world. I know there's still people that don't. And I hope I'm not coming across. To be clear, what I want to say is like, oh, I just think that's like
Some
should
people
be
still
a
live on a
common
dollar a
goal.
day. Like everybody knows some people still live on a dollar a day this world. Like 1 billion people live on a dollar a day.
So it's like, yeah,
So
doesn't it seem like a common goal all humans can get behind is trying
well, let me
to,
answer the first part because I think that's a really insightful facet of the conversation, meaning where we are today in our hierarchy of needs. And what I see it as, it's a temporal distinction. So the timing, the last couple hundred years, we're different.
Mhm.
And so maybe 10,000 years before that, that's another block. And then, everything before that's another block. So like there's these giant blocks that are logarithmically different in timescales. And we're compressing our iterations, but like levering up the impact of each iteration because it's information based.
Mhm.
And these information systems grow different than real systems. This is the whole point of the game, is the information system can grow exponentially at essentially impossibly fast speeds. I mean, just you can break the laws of the universe with information theory. Let me give you an example. Let's say on Monday you have a red card and a blue card, and you put a red card in an envelope and a blue card in an envelope, and you seal it, and then you mix them up, and then you write an address on one and you write an address on the other, and the two addresses are on the East Coast and the West Coast, and you mail them. And next Monday, you call each recipient and you have them on the phone and you ask the one, open up your card, and he opens it up and it's red. You immediately know the other one's blue. So no matter how fast that information has to travel, you beat the speed. You cannot possibly transmit because you already know the outcome by the information system that there are only two probabilities. So you don't need to have, you could check and you'll ask the other guy, open up yours, and he opens it up. It's obviously the other color, he's going to confirm, but you don't have to check. You know instantly without having to move information across that distance. There's an ability, everybody knows this, to share information that supersedes reality. In that if I have two apples and I want to give you an apple, now you have an apple and I have an apple, but if I have two ideas, I can give you two ideas, and now we both have two ideas.
Yeah.
The ability for humans to exploit this is the difference maker in total. I feel this is where we're at, from a hunter-gatherer to agrarian to industrial revolution to information revolution. And now at this information revolution, we are transmitting and receiving. So back to your original point, John, which was the money shot here. Where are we in our hierarchy of needs vis-a-vis the rest of our evolution? And it's totally inverted. Our hierarchy of needs has never been this way, ever. And so our evolution is working sometimes against us, right? So we are hyper stimulated by novelty. We are novelty-seeking creatures. And in the past, that would have meant discovering a new berry, or a new kind of leaf, or a new acorn, or I can chip this rock a little bit differently and I can make it maybe not as sharp as it was, but it can fit in this little hole and I can do these other things. I don't know, whatever.
Finding a new cave, right?
Yeah, exactly. All these edge cases that we are compelled to search for as map makers, because everybody's got it in them.
Yeah.
And as we try to go explore these avenues, we're now satisfying our own need, which is a feedback loop, right? We're satisfying our own need to explore, but now it's in your pocket instead of outdoors. It's in your
Yeah.
phone. It's in the screen of your phone.
Thumb gestures, dude. Thumb gestures. You don't even have to like
Ooh,
stand up. We can do
dude.
all these with our thumbs and like a couple like arm movements to pull your phone out of your pocket. But once it's in your hand and you're looking at it, you can do so much just by moving your thumb
For hours.
for hours.
Maximum novelty experience. You could scroll infinitely. The
Yeah.
infinite scroll guy, even, I think
They
he said, I
call
can't remember
yeah.
who that guy is. The infinite scroll
Hmm.
guy says that might have been the worst thing ever to humanity.
Yeah, it's gnarly, dude. I mean, I'm still a glass half full guy on that, but it's an interesting uh thing and a beautiful term that he came up with, infinite
Mm-hmm.
scroll.
Yep.
And I see, but I do see the potential, like, you know, maybe it's a little bit of a stretch to compare him, but like Oppenheimer, like, fuck,
Mm.
should we have done this? Like, oh no, oh
Interesting.
no,
I like that. Say more. Say more. I want to hear this.
just with in the movie, it's this really beautiful scene, the movie that Christopher Nolan did, where Oppenheimer's like talking to Einstein. And this isn't a big spoiler. I think I can just say, and this is, whether or not this exactly happened, I don't know. It's one of those things, like, I don't really care if it's accurate to reality, because it's the point that was made
Yeah,
that
metaphorically
I think
true.
is,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
metaphorically true. Yeah, I got you.
But there's an early part where, they're talking about the possibility that this nuclear reaction could set off a chain reaction where, you
Never
know
stops. Yeah.
yes, and like literally meaning the atmosphere could be set on fire and the whole world could just be destroyed. And
Talk about an edge case. This is the meaning
yeah,
of
I
edge
know,
case.
right?
It's never happened. This is exactly the point,
Yeah,
Sean. Great. I
yeah.
love it. Let's go. Yeah, this is
So
it.
he says, so, there's a point where Oppenheimer asks Einstein, he's like, "Do you mind looking at these calculations, giving us your thought?" And Einstein, if I remember right, he in the movie, he just says like, "No, that's your, like, you guys are doing this. I don't really want to be involved in, like, if, you can't ask me to, like, tell you it's going to be okay, basically." And so, Einstein just doesn't get involved, basically, is the point. And then later in the movie, um, just really well written thing where, obviously they do it anyway, right? And it doesn't catch the atmosphere on fire, but, it's really fascinating to, like, read some of the, or hear people talk about, it might be like fringe conspiracy things, but like, what if something did happen dimensionally or something? What if something was triggered? Some people talk about the Mandela effect and multiverses, and like that opened a gateway. Now all of a sudden, these people that are like, "Oh, that movie with Shaq, Kazam or
Yeah.
whatever," and people are like, "No,
Yeah.
that never existed." I'm like, "No, it did. I had the
The
poster or
Bernstein
whatever," and all these
Bears effect,
Berenstain
right? The
Bears
Bernstein
stuff.
Bears.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so like, whatever. It's fascinating to think about. But getting back to Einstein and Oppenheimer, and like, what it's the way the movie ends. I guess this is a little bit of a spoiler, but there's more to it that it's great. If somebody's, I don't think I'm spoiling it too much, but there's this wrap around to that conversation that Oppenheimer and Einstein have. And Oppenheimer says, he's like, we were afraid that we might have destroyed the world. And he's like, I actually think we might have done it. I think we
Yeah.
might have destroyed the world. And it's like,
Let me comment on that. Can I comment on that real quick? Because I think that is
of
so
course.
pertinent to a line of thought I've had recently about this. And I might have ranted. It might have been, I can't remember if it's just you and I speaking or if it was on the pod previously, my little rant about, the insanity of nuclear weapons, right?
Yes, right, right.
Okay. Let me go there for a second because I've re-envisioned this a little bit differently. Instead of it being, well, I had contextualized it as this is a weapon system only. And by the way, this is far removed from the A bomb that was, the Fat Man, a little boy or whatever, that was
Yeah.
10 kilotons or something. We're talking about
Mhm.
megaton
Yeah, just crazy.
usage. We're talking about multiple warheads on each reentry device. We're talking about a sub that has enough energy inside of it to launch upon multiple targets on this planet to essentially destroy an entire country. Like one submarine could destroy easily, unless you're like, a giant land mass country. You could destroy an entire country from one submarine.
Yeah,
Okay, here's
craziness.
my point. It's craziness. This is my point. Once you realize how crazy it is, okay, that only a madman would ever use this. Like nobody can ever get away from this truth. Here's what I realized. Einstein is right, or Oppenheimer is right, in that they did create it, in that now there's a tool that holds us all hostage.
Yeah.
It is a lever that is implied in every political discourse, from the superpowers to their population and all the other countries that don't have superpower populations, implied that we can set off a chain of events that will end us all. But by all, they mean everybody without the bunkers. They have the bunkers.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is an implied threat, meaning if I poke Oceania in the eye, it's going to poke me back. I don't have to turn it on my own people, but I'm using it strategically in a game theory optimal sense as a ruling class, in that I can engage the other madman to do mutually assured destruction, which is the foreign policy that has ended direct warfare since, World War II. We don't have superpowers going against each other. We have proxy wars. It's because of this mutually assured destruction game theory, right? If I launch on you, you're going to launch on me. And even though I destroy you, you destroy me. There's no way to win. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Do you remember?
Yeah.
There was a movie, Matthew Broderick, in the 80s called War Games.
Yeah, totally.
Tight movie. We should put that on the list, by the way.
Yeah. Right.
But here's my point. The whole system might have started out as a way for the Allies to defeat the Axis. But what it comes down to is a way for a class of power in the team structure to have this implied threat on the masses of the followers. That's never occurred before.
Wow.
It's always been, right? It's always been one man, one stone. We'll pick up a stone. You pick up a stone. Who surrounds whom? If I surround you, you're done for. If you surround me, I'm done for. Now we have an isolated cadre of classification, not of the same team. So you have a Chinese team, you have a Russian team, you have an American team, you have a French team, and these teams then, each one of them, they have a class of that which says, you know what's in my best interest? We go back to team real quick. There's a definitional point of the game that I don't think we discussed enough, which is, doesn't matter how you played, it just matters if you win or lose. And it's a really hard thing to stomach, but that's what team means. Because sometimes you're the one who got a twisted ankle and you need to be carried. You're not going to contribute to the team that day, but you're on the team. You helped practice. You were always there. You were a contributing factor, and on that day, you twisted your ankle, and we're going to carry you. But my point is, the end result is all that matters. And whatever happens on the day of the game. We're all going to do our best because we're on the same team, let's just say. But not everybody plays as well. So there's a difference between, let's say I was a star on the game. I was a hitter, and I went 5 for 5 with 5 grand slams. Okay, couldn't do any better. But for whatever reason, we still lost the game, and I don't have a championship ring. If you're the one in the locker room prideful about you going 5 for 5, your other teammates will kick the shit out of you. You just lost the game. We all lost the game.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you did a great job. It really doesn't matter if you did a great job when we lost the game. So it doesn't matter if you fucked up and we won. If you fucked up and we won, we'll laugh about it. We might tease you. We'll gently throw it in your face now and again. You'll never forget that you missed that kick.
Yeah.
The field goal hit the upright. We could have won. We had to go to overtime, and then we had to do it in overtime. But that allowed this guy to throw a Hail Mary pass to that guy.
Yeah.
And now we're not just champions. We're like the greatest champions of all time.
Yeah.
So here's back to the point. I see the evolution of the weapon system as being other than like chemical and biological weapons, these weapons of mass destruction are game changers in the literal sense of the game theory, that they invert
Wow.
the power structure. And so it's not Russia against America versus China versus all these. It's insanity. No one's ever going to launch. It's the threat against their population that they will launch an attack against their enemies, because they're never going to imply that they're going to attack themselves. See, this is the twisted part. It's never about we're going to turn our nukes on ourselves. It's if I launch on Moscow, they're going to launch on us.
Right. So yeah, so we just don't launch in the first place. Nobody launches in the first place.
What
Like you
means
said,
is
we're all kind of hostage.
I still have the control of the system. My chain of events working backwards from I can destroy everybody in this country is not that It's a Wonderful Life. Remember It's a Wonderful Life?
Yeah, yeah.
To save George Bailey, you don't wait for him to jump in and then save him. You jump in and he saves you. It's the
Wow.
inversion of the system
Yeah.
that's so dynamic, you never see it coming, but that is the reality of the game theory. Working backwards, it gives them the
Yeah.
control of their own civilization that gets you to an absolute authority. And then when you have absolute power, what happens? You have absolute corruption. This is the nature of the
Yeah.
beast. I'll
Sure,
relinquish
right.
at that point. I don't want to go political, but that's how tight that is, John. That's how tight
Yeah.
that goes.
Wow. Yeah, right. There's again like future episode or something, right, to dive into that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a lot of stuff there. If we could go back real quick to the five roll, do you mind maybe if I just kind of go through each one at a time and just again
Please.
like
I would love it.
up until your explanation, I was thinking of it like in practical terms of like my day-to-day life, and because I have a kid, I have one kid, and you know, how does this apply to my experiences as a father and stuff? Um, so I think you might be interested in some of this stuff. Some of it might just be kind of uh, a couple words and we just move on, but some of this I think is really interesting. Like they listen to each other. Like that means a lot to me. And I don't think I told you this, but my grandma is 100 years old. She's going
I
to
don't
be
believe so.
101 in November.
Outstanding.
You know, if she
Go
makes it,
grandma.
I mean,
Hey, go grandma. Go
she's,
grandma.
you know, she's a trip. She was a World War II Army nurse, but she got in like towards the end, so she definitely saw some like some some fucked up shit. You know what I mean? But uh, I think maybe she got lucky too that I haven't heard her talk about the fucked up shit, like the really like I think she just she so there's this thing called Storyworth that my mom and my aunt did where it's like it's a package you buy to make a book about your life, and it's prompts of like talk about this, your favorite whatever
Yes, I
memory
know
of
exactly
this
what you
this stuff.
mean. Yeah, it's
Yes,
like an
and
ad libs, but for history of
yeah,
yourself. Yeah.
yeah, and they've been working on it for like over a year, and it finally got finished, and it's really cool. And most of what my grandma talks about World War II memories are the traveling, the places she went. There's not a lot of detail about how messed up stuff was with being a nurse and seeing all these, people, uh, suffering the terrifying aspects of war. But one of the things she does talk about is like a lesson she learned, or it's a lesson I learned from what she said, is how important it is to listen to people. And she says it this way, like when people are in pain, um, they don't want to be told, how to fix it. They just want to be listened to. They just want someone to listen to them. And I have taken that sometimes like to this extreme where it meant so much to me, and it was very like humbling. Like a month or two ago on the patio, Kim and I were kind of talking about it, and every so often I just think it's very beneficial for me. I kind of want to say it's beneficial for like all humans, but I don't know all humans. Why would I say all humans? But maybe most. But I think it's very like refreshing every so often to just challenge your own beliefs, and ask, is there another way to look at this? And so what I mean is, I was I was just very like, I don't know, fixated or whatever on this idea that when people are in pain, and I'm talking in broad strokes here again, uh, in my personal life and my experience as a father, like my kid has autism, and he has struggled with like being in public his whole life. He's quite introverted, and you know and so I was thinking about it in those terms specifically, like, if he's in pain, if he's uncomfortable, like, I just want to listen. I just want to listen, like, so much more than trying to give advice, trying to be like, well, stick it out, you'll be better in the end. Like, I just got so enamored with this idea that, like, my job is just to listen. And so what I was getting at, it was humbling, like a month or so ago, is I had this like breath of fresh air of like, you know, obviously that's not an absolute truth all the time, always. People only want to be listened to. Sometimes somebody does want to hear, just tell me this and I'll be better. I mean, it was just this really gnarly thing that I realized I was so fixated on the one side of it. And I totally was just, I didn't even think about the other side. It was crazy to realize, like, of course, there's times when people just want to be told something, and the listening, like, is important, sure, but in that moment, like, they probably just want, like, of course, why wouldn't that exist? It was just a really gnarly thing. So listen to each other means a whole lot to me. I probably didn't articulate all that very well, but
No, man.
there's
No,
a common
first of all,
theme there.
real quick, John, your grandma made me cry just now. Just tell her that,
Oh.
okay? She made me cry just now.
Right on.
That's
I will.
beautiful. That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. It is so, and here's just real quick a reflection on it. The consciousness sees the beautiful moment, and it that's its job. I don't understand it fully yet. Like, I kind of think you're working through it, you're exploring it, and I see that pattern recognition applying to real life, and I see it. So beautiful. But it's like looking at a crazy painting that's more beautiful than you could imagine. You can't even imagine how this thing was created. Who could have done such a thing? And you just stare in wonder. And that's where I'm at right now, is that
Yeah.
that listening component of how real
Yeah.
that is. And I mean strictly to the pain, John, to the pain. Okay, that
Yes.
is, you hit it, man. Bullseye.
Yeah.
She hit it.
Yeah.
Is that listening takes the pain away. And what I thought
Oh,
was,
yeah. Oh, go ahead. No, yeah. Go
real
ahead.
quick, just it's right on the money. It's like a form of psychological grooming. Meaning, like, if you have little mice together and they're all
Wow.
stressed in a box or something, they'll just huddle together and they just kind of like cling, and they'll just like pet each other, and or cats or whatever, dogs, puppies, these socialized creatures just soothe. They just soothe. And when I
Yeah.
say soothe, what I mean is listening is an act of soothing. It's like listening to them is actively, but you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
But you are.
But you are, yeah.
There you go.
So there's this guy, Kevin Hines is his name. I may have told you about him, but I work for Progressive, and one of my favorite things is every so often they have like speaking events. People come in and just share stories, or whatever, and it's incredible. It's one of my favorite things about working for Progressive. And so they had this guy, Kevin Hines, come in, and he's a suicide survivor. He jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge,
Oh,
and
wow.
miraculously, I'm not even going to try to tell his story. He is one of the most brilliant storytellers I've ever heard. He just has a way with words, and to hear his, I guess as a teaser, because I really would encourage anybody listening, like, look up Kevin Hines. He's told his story a bunch. It's in a book. He's been on podcasts. I think there's actually a movie, kind of version in the works. But miraculously, he survived. And one of the ways he survived was like sea lions kept him afloat. And it was like, okay, this is a sign, like, I wasn't supposed to die. I mean, it's very like,
It's like a Disney
anyway,
movie or something.
yeah,
Oh, my
almost,
goodness.
right. But I brought that up because he said something in this speaking event that I immediately wrote down, because I was like, I need to, like, not ever forget this. And he said, a pain shared. Dude, I'm about to cry, man. Hold on. Okay, I can do it. He said, a pain shared is a pain halved. And I just think that's like so fucking good, man. You know what
And
I
joy
mean?
shared is doubled. Yes, this is
Oh yes, we have talked about this, haven't we? We have talked about this. I remember
I
because I
think we
think you
have.
said
I
that
think we have.
a
Yeah.
pain or a joy shared is a joy doubled. So,
Yeah,
oh
there's
man, so
so
I
back to
just love that so
information though.
much.
Go back to the information theory. The fact that the flow of this information, the act of listening is part of the transmission process. The flow of these things is dynamic. But it's logical. Like there's a way to understand when you express your pain, it's like you're getting groomed. Okay, the other person is investing in you some kind of
Mm,
attention just for you. The groomer is not getting anything out of it, so to speak.
yeah,
Not directly. I mean, it doesn't look so, but it really does because number one, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So there'll be your
yeah,
turn too. But number two, you're sharing information. So it's not just grooming where I'm petting you and the petting stops and there's no more petting feeling. You can remember being pet, but the team doesn't share the petting. If you share information through your pain, that is really profound in that it
yeah,
reduces your pain level, but it educates it's
yeah.
reweighting the group model.
Yeah, there's so much I think to say about empathy. Like I think that's when we could probably say for a
Mm,
future episode too. But just the word and the meaning
yeah.
and all this stuff, and
Yep.
like I kind of want to like move on to number two here. Like always tell the truth because I have a lot to say about this too. Like specifically the word always. Again, just in my experience, I haven't shared this with you, and it's like uh, there's there's too much to go into. But my sister is sort of like estranged from our family because of like boundaries. It's very complicated. In fact, I don't think any of us understand exactly what, but she just kind of made a choice to sort of distance herself from us, and it's very gnarly. But when it first kind of happened, I struggled with it big time, and I was very angry, and I it was actually I think enlightening looking back to go through that process for myself because I just recognized I was making myself angry by imagining all these things that she might have been thinking or saying or what her reasons might have been. And it just became so obvious that it was just such a waste of time for me to use my creative energy thinking of all these things when they were just making me angry. It was just really, and one of the epiphanies I had through that, and in fact, it was the first haiku I ever wrote uh, for our like list that became this website. And then I didn't tell you this either, but we're publishing 100 of them in a book, and that's another thing we can get into. Yeah, just a little teaser for getting back to. But anyway, but this haiku, I probably should like just read it real quick. But I got very interested in these absolutes, and so because again, like always, never, and that was part of this thought process that I was going through. That I was hearing the thoughts formulate that way, like I've always done this, or I would never say that, or like it's always, and I just realized that's not even true. Like I can't say that in literal terms, like always and never. So the haiku I wrote was, it is always hard to live within absolutes. It never works out. I thought that was
That's
creative
good. That's really
to
that's
use
really
the
good.
absolutes in the haiku.
Yeah, I like
But
it.
so back to your always tell the truth. So again, just to be clear, like it's just a weird thing that
No, I
that
like
I
it. I really like the tension there. Can I speak on that for a second?
of course, yeah, go ahead.
Truth. Okay, truth.
Mhm.
So if I tell you I am eagle-eyed, am I lying to you?
see see this is like
If I tell
in literal
you
sense and metaphor, right? Like in literal
exactly, right?
sense, I'd say like, no, you're not telling me the truth. You're human-eyed, but like, what
There
do
you
you
go.
mean, right? So it's like, thus the conversation starts, which I think is the important part, right? The
It is.
important
So
part is like,
the shared fact that you know I'm lying to you is a form of truth.
oh, thank you so much for saying it that way because if is this okay if I dive into here?
Please, no, please. That's
The
all. That's
yeah,
the concept. I think is what I'm trying to get at. Is truth is
yeah,
multiple layers of the system, and we can get into that. But I want to hear your response.
yeah, because you said like when it's the shared knowledge that it's you didn't say a shared knowledge that it's a lie, but it's that it's not a true. Can you
Sure.
say it again exactly? Do you remember what
Yeah,
exactly you
yeah.
said?
when you know I'm lying to you, it's the truth.
Yeah.
When you know
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pretend, like I don't expect you to think I'm literally saying what you know I'm lying to you.
Yeah.
That's how
So,
you know there is a truth in there to find. It's not the faceted truth that you expect. It's another facet of the truth that you need to go explore and look into.
yeah.
It's a journey that the listener has to partake in. The answer is not given to you on a platter every time, literally. And so when you get into the big picture of how many ways can I describe, let's just say God, okay, the absolute. How
Mm.
many times? Well, if you say it's not, but let's just say it's in the middle of Times Square and it weighs this much and it's exactly this volume and it's this shade, this color of light reflects off of it and it has this specific heat and this gravity and all. Like you could define everything about it. And once you've defined everything about it, you can't say any more about it, literally. But there's an infinite way to express information about that thing that's metaphorical. You could make an
Mm.
infinite number of lies about the thing that
Yeah.
show another facet of truth. And so there's layers. Now, the point is to not inject deception into the system. The point is not to be
Yeah.
factual in all regards. So I want to talk on this real quick. This is so close to home. In
Yeah.
the nested, meaning it's a refraction of your haiku, in that you nested the words in the haiku itself. Meaning, I am realizing that the rule set defeat the purpose in that they are a rule set. It's not built on a narrative itself. This is part of the problem. It doesn't work. Now it does, and I'll explain how I use it in child rearing, and it's very effective, but it's not effective the way I want it to be effective, which is a whole nother level of effectiveness. But it needs to be built around a story. It needs to have a narrative. And then the rules are embedded in the meaning of the narrative metaphorically. That's how it gets absorbed. That's how it gets spread. The way I do it, I have a way where I have a list and I inject this list into my children's upbringing in a Socratic method. So when they don't listen, I don't get on them about listening. I say, what is the first rule?
Mm.
And that difference
Yeah.
between telling them and asking them a question that they know the answer to is so impactful. So when the girls are not cooperating, I say, girls, what's the fifth rule? Sisters help each other. Doom. I don't have to say anything. I just ask the question. They know the answer. It's the
Yeah.
reinforcement. The problem with that is you have to constantly do it, meaning
Yeah.
it's such a logical thing. You're injecting the logic of the system, but you need to embed at the subconscious level so that's emerging the original impulse to correct the behavior. It does work. They're really well behaved. My kids are the best. My kids are like, everybody loves my kids. They're so polite. They're so good. And they really are. They're like 99.99999% perfect kids.
Yeah.
But there's
Nice.
another way to go. There's another way to get it. It doesn't take constant, because I was a stay-at-home dad and I'm very intense. So I'm very aware of what's going on and participating on levels that not everybody can invest in that regard, etc. So I don't
Yeah.
think it's not something you could just extrapolate out and say, hey, Bob, can everybody do this? Probably not. What we need is a Disney movie that takes these 5 rules,
Right.
gives
Right.
you a princess that goes through a journey of discovery in her life, of hardship and all the rest, like the hero's journey, right? We talked about this as Joseph Campbell concept of there's a pathway. Star Wars reflects this. There's a pathway that you go through in life and metaphorically in the mythos itself that reflect each individual's journey, right? So the story of the Buddha is a story of you, etc.
Mm.
That's the level I think that I am, back to the truth, that I am
Yeah.
wrong at, because I went literal when I should have gone metaphorical on the
Mm.
expression of the rules themselves. And I just realized this like a week ago, by the way,
Oh, wow.
and spoke with Stacy about it, because she's fully on board with the 5 rules. We're obviously parents, so she's equal in all regards, and we use this as a tool in the family. And she agreed that, yes, it does make more sense, because she's a co-creator of all this consciousness, subconsciousness conversation that we've all talked about a million times. That this is the bedrock of
Yeah.
everything. We've been discussing these for a good year and a half, 2 years now. But that's what we're understanding, is that maybe we get a better result by not just listing these things. It's not really functional as a list, because you have to consciously engage, which I can do in an observant way, but the
Yeah.
kids can't do, in that they're subjectively feeling what it's like to feel as being a kid.
Right.
It's very, very hard to overlay the 5 rules on top of that at all times.
Yeah. Wow, man, there's so much. I gotta go back to like these dots that were connected with the way you had said, you know, if we know that it's like a the truth. I'll get to it, because one of the other things I wanted is to say about what I thought about this truth thing is by the way, I think everything you had said, like I could just, you know, echo in my belief of like how important truth is and everything. And then the other side of it that my brain is like, well, what about this? It kind of sounds silly. Like I don't know if I've said this out loud, probably once or twice to Kim actually, but this idea about like actors and movies and TV show where like clearly it's not the truth. They're acting, they're pretending. And so I had this like, you know, connection of dots in the way you had said
I'm
that,
so sorry.
but we
I
all
lost you
know
there.
that.
Yeah, I was dropped out, John. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I think everything's still working here. I was just saying that like in the realm of acting, and you know how the idea of truth and like always tell the truth, and like, well,
Yes.
there's this flip side, like, well, if a person is pretending to be someone they're not, like that's not truth then anymore, right? But I hadn't thought of it like the way you had put it about like, but we all know that it's not the truth, and that makes it. I might have to like go back and
Well, let's
listen
talk.
to exactly what you said, because
Let's
I was
talk about
like really like
one thing's
interesting.
really important here. One thing's really important. Probably the biggest important idea in all of humanity, which is the metaphor. The power of the metaphor
Mm-hmm.
cannot
Yeah,
be underestimated. And
yeah,
the 2 criteria of the metaphor are data compression and data encryption.
yeah,
So the metaphor is not just it's not just an everyday thing. It is like the thing that humans have exploited to add a label to a giant concept. And the 2 don't have to be related. I can put a label on this concept and name it anything I want. It could just be random, or it could be a shared experience that only you and I would understand to trigger the decompression and the decryption of that label into an idea. And so humans are using this, to your point, in acting. This is what we're doing. We're sharing these metaphors that decompress amongst a community on a team. And it hides it from those who are not on the team.
Have you seen Galaxy Quest?
Is that the one with the bugs, like the big alien bugs that everybody's shooting?
I think that's Starship Troopers. What you might
That's
be
Starship
thinking of.
Troopers. I apologize. Yes, Starship. That's what I was thinking of. No, I don't remember
Ga-
Galaxy Quest.
it's just real brief. It's like if Star Trek, the show, it's like a fictional show like Star Trek, but it's called Galaxy Quest. That was like big, you know, a decade or so ago, but it's still got a cult following. Well, it turns out that, you know, because TV signals are broadcast out, radio signals, right? That there's this like alien species that picked this up, that didn't realize it was all fake, that they thought this was historical documents, and they built their whole civilization on like the what they've seen in this show, and they think it's all real.
That's
and
funny.
and there's a
Literally
very like,
interpreted, yeah.
yeah, and there's this really like almost heartbreaking exchange between the alien species, and Tim Allen plays the captain of the Galaxy Quest. He's the Captain Kirk, right? So when they don't understand this acting thing, and Tim Allen's trying to explain, like, because the guy's like, why would you do that? Why would you pretend? Why would you lie? You're lying? I mean, he's using the word lying. Like, why would you do that?
Exactly.
And he's just like, it's hard to explain. I mean, he doesn't actually
Do you remember, John? Do you remember
explain it.
do you remember when I said there was like a really powerful story that Joseph Campbell tells, where he kind of destroys this guy on a live interview? I don't know if you remember. I mentioned this
Yeah, it sounds familiar. Yeah.
about the metaphor. He realized in the discussion this guy kept harping on, but it's a lie. But it's a lie. And he's like, no, 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 no. Do you know? He's like, I didn't mean to do it, but I kind of had to do it. Do you know what a metaphor is? And he had to put this guy on the spot. And the guy
Wow.
broke down. He's like, yes, it means like if you're like a deer, then you're like a deer. And it's like, no, you are the deer. That is the metaphor. You are the deer. It is the thing. Saying this is that. It's not like that. You are
This
saying
is that.
this
Yeah.
is that. But we're sharing the fact that we know this is not that. But you
Yeah.
cannot escape from the point that you're not really lying. And so it's a very profound moment.
Yeah.
I wish I could go back. I'll have to try to find it for you, the reference. It's a very powerful moment that he tells this story. And it really embedded in me that going back to something you had said, I'm trying to recall what it was exactly about. Anyway, going back to the fact that when you are applying these techniques, the difference is shared knowledge that it's a technique. Like you are doing something on purpose. You understand what is happening. And the difference being like you can't control it, but when you understand it, you can kind of like set things up. I don't know. I apologize. I think I kind of missed on that one. But
I think there's, yeah. This is what we wanted to do, by the way. I think in the beginning, right? Like, have the just real time. Like, we have the bullet points, we have the sort of outline,
yes,
but
this is it.
we
This
wanted
is
to
this
just
is
be in conversation, and like
yeah.
just see what happens, kind of, So just kind of speaking of that, like, just time check. It is about an hour and a half. I'm good to keep going. I
Let's
um
keep going, please. I
I think
might
it's probably since. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I might have that technical difficulty with
Oh,
my
sure.
my
Yeah.
recording device, but I can still use the main mic on the phone, so I can do that as
Yeah.
backup. But my earpods
Okay.
will
We'll just
battery
dive
die out
soon.
here in a
Yeah.
minute.
Mine are probably like trailing yours, not too far behind, but yeah, same thing.
Yeah,
Speakerphone. Anyway, I wanted to say, it's probably a good time because you mentioned your wife Stacy. So if anybody's using this app, Callin, search for Sublimation. That's the podcast Bob and Stacy do. They've done 2 episodes, but the one they did yesterday was so great. It was I just love the format. You guys took Bartlett's book of quotes, and just Stacy was picking a page number at random and a quote at random, and then you would read the quote, Bob, and then you guys talked about it. And I can't wait for you to do more of those. There was like multiple ones that just weird ricochets, like a ricochet, that was your terminology, but the like coincidences where it's like something happened yesterday and then you guys talked about a quote, and it was just like that just happened to me. So it was just like a lot of that was my experience. There was a lot of things. I don't know if we'll get into all of it in this episode, but oh man, there was just like so many good things.
I'm
I
smiling, by
think
the way.
nice. There was one for sure. Oh yeah, just to kind of loop back to your example of the red and blue cards and mailing them to opposite sides, and just knowing by you don't have to call both people to find out which card, because just from the one call you'll know what the other one was. And I don't
Instantly.
think and there was a quote, but I don't think I wrote the exact quote, but it was relevant to this audiobook that I listened to. We've talked about a little bit, Conversations with God, but the quote was something about you can't know what is without knowing what isn't. I think
Hmm.
that's the paraphrase that I wrote down, but uh, it was in um, it was in that Conversations with God. Yeah, because there was another quote. I think actually it was like Gustav.
The grotesque quote, the thing with that O'Connor. That's what it reminds me of, where she
Yes,
was
which
talking
is
about this.
the Southern culture, like the grotesqueness.
Yes,
Yes,
where
yes,
she
it is. It is
that's
all
what it was.
related. Yes, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. It is all related, because this idea that you know you only know what something is because you know what it isn't.
Yes.
This like this sort of rudimentary binary that kind of
Well, what's
just,
interesting is the ones that are counterintuitively so. Meaning, what the illustration of that quote I thought was the commonsensical, the cultural appropriate sense was inverted from the reality that she was speaking of. Meaning, if you truly understand the principle of that, then you realize that the people that are speaking, calling out this thing, whereas instead of you saying you're speaking of what you know, right? That would be the label would be you're speaking of these atrocities because you're the ones doing them. Where what
yeah,
she was saying is your ability to sense that they are atrocities only comes from a layer of difference. You have to be having beauty to recognize the grotesqueness first. If you all you have is grotesqueness, you will never be self-observant of it. Like fish
yeah,
swimming in water don't know they're in water is the point.
yes, right, yeah, right. Yeah, there's a lot. For me, there's this whole thing of the other, and I think you in that conversation about that quote, I think you'd hit on that too. That this this idea of the other. Um, in fact, I think Stacy mentioned like a lot of people kind of just in their own bubble of experience and just not being aware of what's outside of their own bubble, and maybe
It's a
only being
blind
aware
spot.
through.
The blind spot, right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah, and it's an interesting thing when the only thing maybe a person knows about the other is what they've seen on the news,
why
or like
propaganda works, brother. It's why propaganda works, man.
it's a gnarly thing,
Well,
and
because you can only propagandize the other because you can't propagandize somebody you know about.
yeah, yeah,
You're not going to tell me. You're not going to tell me anything I don't know about my own, family. You're not going to spin some propaganda against my family that I will believe because I know what I know.
yeah,
But if you tell me something about someone I've never met in a language, show me pictures of a different culture, different dress, different
right,
food, different language, different music, different dances. You tell me anything about them, I'll believe it.
yeah. I think where I'm at in my life is I'm really trying to be conscious of of the moments when I guess my subconscious or my ego is reacting to those things, those new things about the other, in a way that makes me afraid or angry or aggressive. I really think those are like these red flags that I really want to be like, uh, aware of and careful about how I respond after that. I really want to be thoughtful about why am I afraid of that?
Bingo.
Why am I angry about that? Because I've just been
Bullseye.
on this kick. Thank you. I've just been on this kick where I just think that uh, approaching the other with curiosity is this piece in our evolution that is easier now than probably ever before, right? Because a lot of us are have that first layer of psychological needs kind of met, and the I I can appreciate there's like a naivete or whatever about what I'm about to say. So I want to make it clear I'm aware of that, but just that there's less, I think. I just believe in many cases, at least. Again, don't want to say absolutes, right? I don't want to say always because I don't believe that. But I think in many cases, maybe most cases, we're just at much less risk of survival. Survival is much less a thing with these others, with like learning about with things outside of our own bubble,
But
and
that's in
so
the
it.
blink of an eye evolutionarily. So what we are adapted as an animal, like imagine you bred a golden retriever and this thing loves to swim and bring things back to you. And now you don't want it to swim anymore and you never want it to bring anything back to you. And there's a good reason why. I don't know what it is. I'm just
Mm,
making it up on the fly. But this
yeah,
dog is bred to swim and bring shit back to you. Okay, so you are the golden retriever. You are bred to fear the other like nobody's business. You are so terrified of other because humans are the deadliest animal. So we are most adapted to fear our own selves, but other versions of us. That is the most
Yeah.
dangerous thing we've evolved since we started walking. This is my point, brother.
Yeah.
We are a machine, just like all these other creatures, like a horse. It runs on its fingertip. You can't just choose that kind of thing. It's just that is what you are. You run on your fucking fingertip, man. Okay. and
Yeah.
maybe someday the horse is like, I will engineer a spaceship and I will fly and I don't have to run on my hoof. Fair enough. Fair enough. But you
Mhm.
have to look back and say, how did I get here? And we're at just the blink of an eye. Because I love the like the 66-year gap between Kitty Hawk and the fucking moon, dude.
Oh, yeah.
So think about the distance between the Wright brothers' first flight and landing on the moon.
Yeah.
Look it up. It's 66 years. Think about that. Think about that.
The significance of the number specifically 66 or
How short a time period you went from it is impossible for there to be heavier than air flight. Powered flight was just thought to be impossible. You could
yeah.
do a dirigible, you could have a hot air balloon, but you cannot have powered flight other than a bird. From
Yeah.
that to be 66 years is like, 2-3 generations of humans. To be
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
human walking on the surface of our
But
satellite. We have a
yeah,
satellite.
right.
Humans have looked at this goddamn thing, their whole entire evolution,
Yeah.
giant thing in the
And
sky, and
we put we put one of us there, some of us there,
there's
like
footprints
11
up there,
people.
man. There's
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
footprints up there. Okay, so what I'm saying is we are the golden retriever that has now been told you no longer should swim and don't bring anything back to me. And so the other is so terrifying to us, John. The other is
Yeah.
so terrifying to us that when I talked about, and it was a little unpleasant for me to talk about this, the early episode 1 at the end, like you come upon the Cain and Abel, you come upon this other to you. I know Cain and Abel are brothers, but you come up, they're the first two. So this is the first dichotomy of otherness in humanity. When you come
Yeah.
across the other, it's not a bad idea evolutionarily to kill them and take all their stuff because it removes the competition and you get a bunch of free stuff. And this is how humans evolved. And we have to be real about this because this is about the truth. Okay. We want to talk about the truth.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
do not look at the real truth and you make up a narrative about what you believe the truth is and not the actual truth, and I'm not saying I have absolute truth, I'm just trying to say the
Sure. Yeah.
value of real truth is that you can then narrate off of it. You can adapt it. But if you don't know the real truth, you're not planning in reality. You're making up a story. It might be true, it might not, but you could be just spinning a complete propaganda on yourself.
Dude,
So
that's awesome. Like it's
you
this
have to know
idea
the
of
truth.
like a yeah, foundation about having a foundation that is truth.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, man, that's cool. Like my I think I can just briefly say this, but I think it's relevant and interesting. My so uh Kim's dad's cousin. So what does that make? Like a second cousin or something? Anyway, like
This is a
her
Spaceballs
father.
line.
I know, right? Yes, exactly. That's awesome. But her father went crashed in World War II, crashed in Poland, no, Lithuania. Oh shit, dude, I don't know the country anyway. But there was a princess, a Romanian princess, like ended up kind of coming across his wreckage, and they nursed him back to health, um and then he, you know, went came back to America, but he wrote a book about it, and it's called The Princess and the Pilot, I think is what it's called. And in the 70s, I think, or the 80s, these people approached Kim's, you know, dad's cousin, the second cousin, and said, you know, we kind of want to make a movie about your father's story. And but they were like, they wanted to elaborate on it. They wanted to add some romance, because there was no romance with the princess and the pilot, but they didn't end up together. They didn't fall in love.
Make it
She helped him, and
based on a true story, not the true story.
yeah, yeah, yes, exactly. And it was interesting because the second cousin was like all for it. She was just like, "This sounds cool," but her sister, because there was two daughters, and the sister was like, "No, I would only want it if it was accurate," and so it never got made. But it was an interesting thing because it's an interesting story, and Kim and I talked about it in that same way that I mean, there's countless examples like that based on a true story, but there's elaboration and stuff. And I like how you described it. If there's a foundation of truth, right? And then if it's clear, like we're all on the same page here, that, um, you know, these pieces aren't true. These pieces were created for the specific story we wanted to tell. Then it's still truth. There's not like a deception. You mentioned that earlier, how about like introducing deception in it is kind of like, well, shame on you. Don't do that. You're ruining it. Our person's ruining it, like by intentionally deceiving, right? And
Well, if I were to
anyway,
ask you, like, let's say you come and say, "Hey, how's your day, Bob?" And I say, "You want the truth or you want me to lie to you?" Okay. Now, when you say, "Yeah, Bob, lie to me," I say, "I had the best day ever, John. I woke up. I didn't fall on my face. I didn't step on a Lego. I didn't
yeah,
bang my knee. I didn't have a bill in the mail that was past due. I didn't get into a fender bender and then get a parking ticket. My day's fucking
yeah,
awesome, brother. How's your fucking
yeah,
day?" Okay, right?
right.
So once you share the
Wow.
lie, it is not a lie anymore. We're just making a metaphor of the truth. And that is the power of humanity. That's the power of our consciousness, meaning it's the narrative that we lock in. So go back to the definition of, memory, consciousness versus subconsciousness. So subconscious memory is episodic. It's the Pavlovian conditioning. You'll never forget what it felt like when that thing happened. When that crazy event happened, you will remember every instance. Your body, if not your consciousness, will remember how it felt exactly. It's imprinted. But your mind will make up a story, and the narrative is what you will remember. Okay, so you cannot remember consciously that data. It's not in your purview. It is not your role in the system at hand. You're going to make a story up after the fact about what just happened. You'll never forget that fucking story. Okay, that story will live for generations, and it'll never replace the feeling, but you can't transport the feeling to somebody else. So having the layer of story on top of the reality is what sets us free. That is the consciousness of humanity. But all the driving component, the Marge Simpson of the thing, is below, right? We're Maggie. And so I don't know if we've gone through this. It's a very important story. Have we discussed this on the pod yet? I know you and I have discussed it.
Yeah, go for. I don't think we did. If somehow, I don't know how it didn't exactly come up last episode, but it's totally relevant. So yeah, please.
Well, everybody knows The Simpsons because it's been on for 80 years. Okay, so
Right.
you got The Simpsons, and they got the same intro. It's always the same intro, so I love it.
Yeah. Little
Other
tweaks,
than
right? Like what Bart writes on the thing. Like that's the
exactly,
joy. Like every so often, it's
exactly.
like something new. But yes.
So you have the part where Maggie's driving, or you see Maggie with a steering wheel, and she goes left, and then it cuts out. The car goes left. She goes right. The car goes right. She goes to honk honk, and you see Marge is driving.
Yeah.
They're both honking at the same time. So when you are sitting subjectively at the Maggie level, and when you turn left, the car does turn left.
Yeah.
And you can just justify the shit out of everything you do, man.
Yeah. Right.
But there's a split second of realization that is, if you go close enough, if you zoom in enough, Marge has to turn left a split second before Maggie. And so that is the reality. Once you can honestly say, this is what is happening, this is the truth now. The foundation is I am not doing it. I'm observing the fucking thing, man.
Yeah.
That gives you the grace of forgiveness of self and others, and it gives you the tool of how to really change. Not just say you're going to change. Like, hey, I'm a tough free will guy. I have a lot of willpower. I'm going to cold turkey do this thing. I'm just going to change my life. Fuck that. Okay. Fuck
Yeah.
that. That is not your role, man. That's not your role. But when you understand the role of the desire, that is conditioned by the environment, and you can control that. You can decide where your eyes are looking at. Okay. You can decide what to consume information wise. You can decide, I want to do this. And then your subconscious emergent side can only play with what it's got. It doesn't just make up Shakespeare. You have to put it in there first. Then it
Yeah.
gives you Shakespeare back. And now you're talking, man. So this conversation is a self conversation, metaphorically, meaning literally, but you're using metaphors between consciousness, subconsciousness. So the thesis is the compression and encryption of the metaphor is what the subconscious uses to communicate to the consciousness, and in reverse. So you embed the information not as a list, an abstraction. You embed it with the story, the feeling of what it feels like to be the little princess, Moana, and go through the journey she goes through. You identify the feeling and you feel that way. Now your subconscious will give you that story, that moralizing, ethical sense of right and wrong in the future. It will give you that sense through some compression of the Moana story. And it'll be a flash, it'll be a split second, and only you will know what that means. You can't just give it to somebody else and they'll understand. Okay. Now maybe you can share the same kind of metaphorical compression, but it goes back to Benny and the Jets.
Yeah. Yeah, that, which by the way, yeah, that's definitely one for another podcast to just, because I've only told you I've only told you like the end part. Like there's a whole beginning of that story that was really like
I would love to hear it.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's awesome. I appreciate that you like that it resonated. Even the little bit that I shared resonated enough that, you know, in that in that description, that explanation of the power of metaphor, man, it's awesome. Man, all right. So we are getting close to 2 hours. There's 3 more rules here. I wonder if we could maybe try to see how far we can get. Because like I said, I think I have stuff to say about like all of them. And it's been very.
Do it as it feels good. If it's still going and you're loving it, I've got time. So I would say we can continue as long as it feels good. And if there's a stopping point, we can stop too.
Yeah. Let's go for, so number 3, no complaints. So like that, you know, again, in the context that you described it, like survival and stuff, makes a lot more sense to me. My experience as a father, it's almost the opposite. It's almost like I wouldn't tell Jay, don't complain, you know, but again, like, well, but we're not, if we were out in like a survival like scenario.
I think the art is in the definition though. When we talk about complaint, you have to differentiate an actionable communication amongst team members that will improve the situation. That is not a complaint.
Yeah.
That is someone communicating, hey, we can do this better. Let's do it a little bit, 15 degrees to the southeast. Okay, that's a totally separate. So the detail here is so important. The definition, when I say complaint, it is pouring dirty water into the well. Okay.
Yeah.
It is muddying the water. It's playing a note that's disastrously in a different key, in different tempo over a beautiful orchestra that's all in harmony.
Yeah.
You're disrupting something to call attention to something, but in the balance of things, in the moment, the complaint means it's non-justifiable. You are on a journey to go somewhere. We're not here to talk about this other thing. Okay. So it's a way, because a lot of times the game theory is being played out at a subconscious level. And when you allow the team members to begin doing a game theory optimal against the structure of the group, that's an exploitation point. If I can introduce enough noise into the system, enough tangential information enough non-pertinent disagreements, disharmonies, enough sandbags to weigh us all down, maybe I can sit and I don't have to go anymore. And so they're not consciously complaining. They're subconsciously trying to inject some kind of deflection into the system. And if you allow that, it only gets worse. So the leadership of the team structure, the ones that succeed are the ones that suppress complaints, this unnecessary dilution of the signal, this unnecessary noise in the signal that is preventing the common achievement of a goal, which should be at the foundation level a survival thing. So it's non-negotiable. It's not like it's okay. Sometimes it's okay to have a difference of opinion. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about there's a mission and you're complaining. That is not tolerated because that will just allow the exploitation of the game theory subconsciously by the participants who don't agree, like, yeah, today's the day we're going to clean the house. Okay, no, today's the day we're going to clean the house. We got to clean the house. The guests are coming. Got to clean all the places we don't normally clean. Well, yeah, but my back hurts a little bit, and I didn't get a good night's sleep, and I'm a little bit hungry. And okay, I know what you're doing now. Right? You're going to bring up all these little subjects and all these little tangents. And you know what? I didn't do my homework last night, and I got to get that. And don't we have to write that card for Grandma because it's her 101st birthday coming up? And all these things. But if you don't focus on the agreement, which is, hey, we all listened to each other in the beginning, and we said, wouldn't it be a good idea a week ago for us to buy a bunch of cleaning products and get everything ready for Grandma's birthday party so when she shows up, she has the best day ever. And we all agreed. And now we're putting this in motion, and now we're 4 hours into an 8-hour project, and your back hurts. And I get it. But mine doesn't. We're going to keep going until we get this thing done because that's what we agreed on. We got to do this thing. We're going to do this thing. And now if there's like the house is burning down, you got to change plans. Okay. But the complaint is not about reality. The complaint is about a subversion of the mission through mostly subconscious means.
Yeah, I like that explanation. It kind of seems to go almost hand in hand with like the no excuses thing as well. And it occurred to me as you were describing it that like it's if I'm just always looking for like a silver lining or something, I don't know, maybe I do that, but it seemed like, oh, this is a call to action of, on the part of the person who's sensing this reason to say this out loud. My back hurts. I didn't, like, what do you want to do about it? Like, I got that from a friend who there was a, maybe the actual specifics of the story aren't like important in this conversation, but anyway, but like, what do you want to do about it? Like, I liked how you said like, well, it was in the beginning, like before the muddying water, it was almost like instead of before you put the dirty water into the well, like assess the dirty water. What do you want to do about it? Like, why is that there? Can we just,
why are you
talk about
dumping
that
this?
in
Why
like,
don't you dump it in the dirty water pool, right? We have a dirty water pool.
right.
Let's just use that. And so the solution is defeated by the act itself. You're not solving anything. That's the point. 100%. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
You're literally making it worse. Yeah, you're just making it worse for everybody.
Yeah.
If we team up, look, if you have a real problem and we team up, like your foot does have blisters, we will carry you now. But if we put you on four people's backs, everybody can comfortably carry you. So we're going to put you in a litter between four people and our four strongest people because they're happy to do it and it's not going to cost them that much energy and blah, blah, blah. Like there's a solution there, right? That's what you're looking for. When you talk about, hey, I make lemonade out of lemons, that's a solution. What I'm talking about is you take lemons and you pour a bunch of cement on them because you don't want to make lemonade today and you don't want anybody to make lemonade today. So now guess what? I just ruined your lemon. So make your lemonade now, motherfucker. Go make your lemonade now, okay?
Right.
I'm going to piss on your lemons, right? It's like, so that you can't let somebody else piss on the lemons and your lemonade is no good.
Yeah. That'll be the subtitle of the episode. Don't piss on the lemons.
Wow, that's a good
That's great.
compression right there. See, that metaphor really works because it's funny because you
Yeah.
don't know it until you know it, and then once you know it, it's
Mhm.
funny.
Yeah. Right. And just another teaser for a future episode, just talking about humor, just talking about like what,
Yes, 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 yes.
comedy, laughter, all the things. Yes, that'll be a good one. Yeah, I think we're probably close here, like, because the last one it might be my favorite one because I just all day long help each other all day long. It just makes so much sense to me. Help each other. Uh, you know, well, this is one that I don't have an opposing thing for. It just rings so true to me,
Well, let me
and
expand on one piece here. I think this is super evident. We already covered a lot of the ground, which was, in the family, grandma and the little one, they're not lesser people. They're just another version of the family. We're all coming
mm,
together, right? Okay. But here's what I
yeah,
want to get to. I think this is the novel facet of this. I'd like to hear your opinion. The theory of economics as proximity to self in the social order, meaning families are communist. Doesn't
mm,
matter if you produce, it's from each according to their ability, to each according to their needs. Literally, mom
yeah,
and dad go work, kids are not working, but we all got to eat. So you
yeah,
feed every kid. It doesn't matter if they're not productive. You're not worried about their productivity. That's not the point. Your family is communistic, okay? And then you get to like a town, and a town is, maybe more capitalistic, where you're interacting in commerce with other little tiny micro groups, and you have
right,
structure. And then international, maybe it's libertarian. Okay, and now you're more like a libertarianistic. We have free exchange amongst each other, and it's best for all, etc. My whole point is, and it's not my point, obviously, but the whole concept is these economic systems are a function of proximity to self.
mm,
And so helping is this fundamental, because how do you help? This is a classic economics problem. How do you help somebody like they did the starving kids in Africa thing, right? They would do like, oh, let's start with 30 cents a day, a cup of coffee a day, you'll help this person. It was a really difficult thing because first world people that are making, 100,000 a year could easily change the life of hundreds of people in these really poor countries. Like it just costs like cups of coffee a day. It's embarrassingly simple to lift out in real demonstrable ways people who are in abject poverty with first world standards. But we don't do it. And the reason why it's so far away, it's so far away that
yeah,
the mind cannot conceptualize. What is that thing with the 150 people? There's a name for this thing. There's a concept where the humans have evolved like about 150 people list in their head. That's about as much as you can really think
huh,
these people really exist. I'm trying to remember what this is. Google it for me if you can. It's I'm trying to remember what it's called. But there's this list of, or a certain quantity that is like a tribally evolved quantity. That above that, we do not have a capacity, just like you can't see an ultraviolet light, you can't see an infrared, you just don't have the capacity to do it. There is this level at which humans have evolved, and it's about 150 to 250 people. And so a
I'm
lot of what we're
still looking.
playing,
Yeah,
sorry, I know I'm not giving a very good
no, it's fine. Yeah, I'm trying to think of
guidance
like
on that.
like my Google foo is failing me right now. So,
I
but
know,
but
I
I'm
know,
not
I'm
giving up. No,
failing you.
no.
I'm failing you with the prompt here because I know. I actually know what the thing is. It's just on the tip of my tongue, which is frustrating. But the name of this thing, so funny that it's striking me.
Dunbar's number, the
Thank you,
notion
Dunbar's
that
number.
there
Yeah,
exists a cognitive limit on human groups of about 150 individuals. Yeah, Dunbar's number. Ah,
thank you, Dunbar's number. So
excellent.
we
Something
have,
new.
yeah, we have these evolutionary capacities that seem to fit the structure of the team at different levels. And this is what I'm getting at. This is the same thing with like always do this or always do that. When you think about always doing something, it's got to be relative, meaning you don't always do something because you don't always kiss everybody who's not your wife. You'll kiss your wife, right? Right on the mouth. But you
Yeah,
won't kiss everybody. But you can't say,
right.
like, do you always kiss people on the mouth or do you never kiss people on the mouth? Well, that doesn't really make sense, right? It does not make sense because sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It's relative to the circumstance. So if I asked you, do you always kiss people on the mouth? Obviously, the answer is no. But if I said, do you never kiss people on the mouth? The answer is also no.
Yeah.
So you're in the middle, obviously. So we're all in the middle of this game. And the frustration lies between who do I help? Who do I help? Because the implication is, who do I fear?
Ah, wow.
You're going to help
Yeah.
your teammates. You're going to help your teammates. But if you help your enemies, what are you doing to your teammates? Like, what if I support the guy who ends up throwing a spear through Jim Bob's head tomorrow?
Yeah.
Man, I just made a huge error. If I'm in that game, I made a huge error.
Yeah. It's the Gollum thing, you know. Bilbo could have killed Gollum,
There you go.
and then
Beautiful.
Gollum wouldn't have been there, but
Wow.
and Dumbledore talks about like pity and knowing when to
Totally.
spare a life. Yeah, there's a lot of
See, this is
stuff in
this
there.
is what I mean about putting the 5 rules into a narrative. You just unpacked the oh my God, one of the greatest narratives of all time in such a beautifully profound and mimicked way, meaning it reflects what we're talking about. That's why I love, by the way, Betty and the Jets.
Yeah.
That was the first time you hit me with the metaphor. That was exactly what I was talking about. And it happened to be exactly about the metaphorical process, which was a double dip. I love that. Meaning it was meta, it was like stacked on top. But anyway, the fact that you just did the Gollum thing, because that is what happens at the end. Gollum bites the ring off of the finger and falls into
Right.
That's it. The whole point. If he doesn't
Yeah.
do that, the whole game restarts.
Yeah.
So if you kill him in the beginning, if Bilbo kills him, pardon me, your point is more correct. If Bilbo kills him in the beginning, because obviously Sam had every justification to kill him during the ascents, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
it was
Right.
just
He
Frodo's.
found out. Yeah. When it's the intentional deception thing. Like, shame on Gollum. He tricked Frodo into thinking that Sam ate all the bread.
Totally.
And dude, yeah, it's intense, right?
Consciously.
Yeah.
He laid a trap on purpose.
Yep.
That was the conscious layer.
Yes.
Looking forward with deduction. Yeah. That is the thing that we have mythologized the archetype, this human condition. When you look at art and you look at all these songs and the poets and etc. I mean, like I said, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever, you can get to subconsciousness in like 3 steps every single time. It is just a bedrock foundation. And the point is, the pattern recognition is this threat reward system that we have constantly running in the background. Who do I help? Who do I fear? Wow. Whew, it's a tough nut to crack, because when the adrenaline kicks on and it's real and your mouth goes dry and you start feeling the blood pump and your ears just start, hammer tripping, and you know what I'm talking about. Like, that is a real thing. You got to deal with that. That is not an abstraction. That's concrete.
Yeah. Wow, dude.
But I would like to circle the wagons around one final cherry on top, which is the real heavy lift. Modern humanity, the real heavy lift is asking for help. And I haven't seen how that is played out evolutionarily. I don't think that's a first order effect, meaning I would think like the band of proto-humans who first started walking and who first started throwing rocks, I would think they would be very comfortable calling an alert and calling for help. That's just my gut.
Yeah.
I'm thinking they would work as a team in such a regard. And my point is this: I think it's not until you get to reputation level.
Yeah.
Reputation level drives an insecurity of asking for help.
Yes.
But without reputation, we're all just trying to win. This is when I get to the point of the foundation of, like, we have to win this thing. That's what we're here for. Meaning we are made through evolution, not of our choosing, to feel a certain way, and that is because it's successful. It just works compared to all the other possible routes of evolution that there are and have been. And we have to recognize the golden retriever inside of us, that we've got this thing, and it can get triggered and it can come out. If you don't know that game is being played, it doesn't matter how smart you are. You're going to have a model that is incongruous with reality at some critical failure point. That's the meaning of the thing, is having your model. The truth is your model has to fit the reality. If your model doesn't fit the reality, it's not going to predict the next thing correctly for you, or someday in the future, and you're going to fall.
Yeah.
What you do with the real model is up to you. What you do with the prediction is up to you. That is not fixed in stone. Let's go to like the future is not, go to Terminator 2, right? The future is
Oh,
not
yeah. No fate
set
but
in
what we
stone.
make.
No fate but what we make. That's
Yeah.
the realest deal. You don't have a fate, but you're not driving. You're Maggie. So Marge is
Yeah.
driving, but you
Right.
don't have a fate. You have to figure this thing out. Once you can pull back and see the whole process, now you can adapt it, use it somehow, but you got to be honest. If you're not telling the truth at some level, it's not going to predict the true outcome. You cannot put the false information into the computer and have the algorithm spit out something useful
Mm-hmm.
when you're deceiving the model itself. You have to
Yeah.
be faithful to the model.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for wrapping that around too, because I'd forgotten in your first explanation of like to help each other, like a key there is like asking, like being
Yes.
being aware of the importance of like asking and
Distress signal.
yeah. And yeah, what a profound thing to, you know, think about the fact or the role that reputation plays and how like that insecurity and that fear of ruining a reputation or whatever coming across weak by asking and yeah, where did that happen? Because I agree with you, probably that's something that it was like a unintentional byproduct of evolution or something, because it doesn't really make sense. I mean, well, I don't know. I think
It
I'm just
shows
that
you
kind of
how it
person.
shows John. It shows you how important the team is.
Yeah.
Your reputation only matters as a team. It goes back to that lady's quote. What was that quote about finding out your true self only lasts for one generation?
Oh yeah. Knowing yourself is only good for one generation, right? I remember that
Yeah.
one. Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
there's a
interesting, right?
sense of independence. This sense of independence as the absolute strength or the dominant quality is really tough to fold back in to the evolved level. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just making a 30,000 foot statement that we have evolved a hyper team, hyper social. We are honeybees, man. We are honeybees, man.
Yeah.
And we're trying to now have these conflicting ideas and real time, information strategies are evolving. And I'm not judging. I'm just saying, but the ones that are hyper individualistic are going to run counter to our golden retriever nature, period.
Mm.
And without identifying that, we're going to have stress in the system and it's going to fail at the worst time ever, and it's just going to be a blind side and it's going to be catastrophic. And this is what happens over and over and over again, where you get this level of higher, you're going up the Haslow's pyramid of needs and you're getting to self-actualization and you're just focusing on nothing but that, and all the lower levels rot away and everybody's an individual, and I don't even have to be on a team because we always just win. There's not even a team. Like there's literally, they don't even think they're on a team anymore because we all just win so easily. Everybody gets a ring every year. Just show up. Just show the fuck up and take a picture and you're on the championship team. And so, and this is, 200 years, 300 years, 400 years of this. It's just a blip. It's just the tiniest little blip.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that the future is not one of independence and individual actualization and all the rest. It might be. I don't know. It might be the best thing. Like everybody gets to seed their own universe, with their desires and whatever, and create an entire thing about themselves. I don't know. Maybe that's what happens. I don't know. But I do know that's not what we evolved from.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's I'm trying to like think of how to formulate this. Like, I just have this. I think it's just my nature, right, to just be optimistic about like the future. I'm
Of
just
course.
very like, and whenever Kim and I talk about future generations or whatever, and I just I'm just much more optimistic. I think that's it. So yeah, we're probably getting to the end of this. I think we could probably start like teasing like some future episodes. You've mentioned that you're interested in the band, so and I shared our the first episode with the bass player from the band. Like he has a good contrast. He's not I don't think he's a pessimist, but he can, he has a lot to say about sort of the inverse of my optimism of the future. Like I think he he has
compliments you. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And so I think at some point he's going to add something to this dynamic that we're cultivating here that I think will be really neat.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
And by the way, just real quick, I've been listening to that Food of the World and Evolution of Food and Humanity lecture series. It is amazing. Thank you, Tucker.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Right on. Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah.
And I will speak on that. By the way, I will like to speak on that once I've consumed the full thing. There's a lot in there consumed. My apologies. Bad pun. Once I've listened to the full podcast, listened to the full podcast, I will, I'd love to do an episode just on that. Just like we're talking kind of like a book review or something like that.
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah. That was my introduction to Audible, was through Tucker. It was similar, a lecture style thing. It was the big questions of philosophy. I think I've referenced that with you a couple times, but that's why I have Audible at all, is because Tucker was like, check this thing out. And yeah, it's like 19 hours. It was a long thing, but it was
this thing's like 18 hours, 34 minutes. So this is going to take me a minute, but yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So awesome episode today. I think we like nailed a bunch of stuff that we've been talking. We took advantage of like being able to formulate a lot of things we've been talking about here and there in bits and pieces, and a lot of it came together today. It was really like awesome, I thought.
Let me just springboard off that, double click real quick on every once in a while there'll be a topic where it's almost like more advantageous to give almost like mini lectures for 2 or 3 hours worth of just foundation level stuff, and then you and I can dig into it.
Yeah.
And really play around in the sandbox, and that's what this show's about.
Yeah.
Okay? Sending Poets is about John and myself seeing the beauty and wondering, why is this thing so beautiful, and digging into that. That's the meaning of it. The metaphorical compression of the beauty we see is what we're transmitting. Mm-hmm. So we're going to, this is our goal, is to have this style of conversation. This is what he and we love.
Yeah.
And we're going to get there and deeper and many varied topics. I think we'll do these concentrated, maybe 3-parters every time we hit a foundation cornerstone topic, that then we can really dive deep. But otherwise, I think, every week we could have different topics as well.
Yeah. So what do you think for next week? Like, I know like in the next, there's 2 things I think.
I think we got to hear about the band. I mean, we talked about the band. We've referenced the band.
Yeah. Okay.
Hear about the band, so.
Yeah. So let's see if we can, wrangle Tucker in maybe. If not, like for the first time, I don't know.
Very cool. That would be very cool.
I think,
because I love the tech of. We also talked about podcast in front of an audience, and allowing Q&A or allowing interaction, allowing guest speakers to come in and all that. I think that this platform will be, it's not a pure podcast. Like what you and I are doing, I think, is more multi-layered. So we have the informative and the educational, the entertainment, but also I think there's a component here for interaction that may be different than a podcast.
Yeah, the tech of this Callin app is great for people like us that are just trying to get something going. It's fantastic. Yes, I agree too. Like having people come in, and I'm very much looking forward to that kind of thing for sure. So
brilliant.
Sweet. All right. Well, any parting thoughts for this episode before I play the outro? I have a new outro, by the way. So.
Oh yay! My parting thought would be I would definitely preload a ton of your band clips into the soundboard, so you could in midstream. I think that's a cool functionality. I would
I'm
love
glad
to.
you said that. I didn't think about that, but I love the idea. So yes, I will work on that.
Well, and then secondly, I think we had already discussed offline a little bit. Let me have maybe give me a little sampling of something that I can generate some questions on, that I can come at it with
Sure.
some
Yeah.
in-time Q&A. And I'm stoked on it. I've had a little bit of exposure already, a little bit of background, but I think having it in a public format is going to bring out the dynamic nature of what we do. I think having it in this format is going to raise it to another level.
Yeah.
And then
Excellent.
Tucker involved. I think that's an amazing iterative progress that we can include as a guest spot, and including some
Right.
outside talent.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Right on. All right. Well, thanks for listening. Again, if you're listening on this app, just search for Sublimation. That's Bob and Stacy's podcast. 2 episodes so far, but really interesting formats. The first one was a different format from the second one, but again, the second one, the Bartlett's quotes, just amazing. Can't wait for more of those. But yeah, until next time, thanks for listening, and cheers, fam.
Cheers.